Welcome back everybody to another episode of the Charlie and Cara Show. Today is going to be all about coaching. As you guys know, that some of the episodes we do is where Cara, being a professional expert and coach, as a full-time job, she will be coaching me through some of my struggles, and at the same time you guys that are listening will be getting coached as well. So providing I'm open and vulnerable and sharing, areas that I need help, I'm sure that there are going to be things that resonate with you at home. So we're all getting a lovely healing coaching session together. And I'm happy to dive right in and be the voice for the audience. It's probably going to get a little messy and a bit scary, maybe, for some of you if you haven't kind of gone into this work before. But yeah, we're in this together and let's start our healing journey. And I'm just going to be available and open for Cara to talk me through whatever comes up.
Yeah, and so I think today for our first coaching session, one of the things that we really want to start with is looking at past struggles and looking at different areas in your life where things have happened and maybe created an energetic imprint, or they've created patterns, or they've created really deeply rooted beliefs around yourself, around what's possible for you.
Yeah.
And diving into that area so that we can do some deep releasing and shift some of those beliefs, or just create space for something new to come through.
Amazing. And the great thing I love, like the reason I'm so thankful for doing it with you is, guys, I have definitely got some awareness around my struggles, but I struggle to actually take the next step. So I'd say one of my strengths is communicating and being aware and being vulnerable, but then I'm not good at the discipline, the implementing, the coaching, and I don't know how to go forward with the information. Yeah. So it's almost worse because I'm like a human that's got this awareness of all of my flaws and my blocks, but yet I don't actually know how to go forward, and that's where this is great. So that's why we're a team. Right, so where do we start, Cara?
Well, I guess we would start with picking whether it's one or two primary areas where you feel like something is showing up still right now, something that is deeply rooted and has been affecting you for a long time. And then from there we can work our way back, and I'll provide as many tools along the way as I can and just help uncover and unpack some of this for you.
Are you ready, guys? I wish we could hear you on the other end, live right now. We'll definitely be doing some Instagram lives and some things like that very soon too, because it'd be really nice to interact with questions that come through live as well. But for now, you guys you will be able to write in to our email address with questions. So if there's any topics that you want to discuss, or any specific struggles or things you want to look into, then write in, and then we can make that episode about that topic and give you some tools.
Or definitely engage on Instagram on the posts as well, and let us know what breakthroughs happen for you while you're listening to these sessions, or if you have any questions that come up as you go, and
hit up the
we're
DMs.
Here with
you. Okay, right. So do I pick the topics, or do you want to ask me some things? How does it work?
I want to sort of let you decide what you think is the biggest focus right now, because clearly we all have layers and layers
and many
through our
issues.
life, and many issues, even though we can be very good at hiding them or keeping them composed. But I think the biggest thing is finding one specific area in your life that you want to focus on, because sometimes, especially when we do have multiple areas or unhealed wounds, it's really overwhelming if you're looking at all of them at once.
That's exactly how I feel, is totally where to start, because there's a lot to unpack. I mean, the main thing for me that comes out, there's two things actually. There is my control issues. So there's just to give you all some context as well. So whenever I'm in a relationship, when things go wrong, or I'm jealous of another woman, or I get broken up with, I have a major need to know issue of, I need to know exactly, what's happened, why is, I want to understand it all, and I don't quite understand why. I know it's from control, but where's that coming from, and why this need to know? And I have a feeling it's because I base my worth in that person's hands. So I need to know where they're at and why they went off me or why they preferred another woman so that I can decide
your worth.
My worth,
decide
right?
what that means about you.
Exactly. Instead of having that already decided, which is what I want to do, and you know, we can uncover that all together and get clear together through this journey. But yeah, to have that absolute clarity within myself so that it doesn't matter why the man goes off you or does this and that, you don't need to know. So I'd say my biggest thing is control and need to know issues. And within that, the second one would be also jealousy and insecurities, but I think that's all the same.
Yeah.
So what is that? Like, what word would you pick for that absolute array of mess?
Oh, wow. I would say the biggest thing that sums up all of those to me is insecurity / self-worth, because that's what creates the need to control. That's what creates the jealousy. That's what creates all the need for external validation.
So it's not actually the control that's the issue. Something is causing me to get that
feel
controlling.
like you need the control. So the control is like the byproduct, and then the insecurity, self-worth is actually what's the root
crux.
cause. It's what's triggering you to do that.
Love that you just cleared that up. Okay, so with that being said, where from here? There's many insecurities.
One of my first questions is usually, is there a specific time in your life where you feel like you really, really, as children, right, we're pretty naive, but we're also really connected to the universe. We're connected to ourselves. We're just loving, laughing, in flow. We don't have all these worries or insecurities. And then all of a sudden, there's a point in our life where something happens, whether it's in family dynamics or whether it's our appearance and like puberty, things like that, and all of a sudden we start to question ourselves, or we start to feel like we're not enough, or starting to go inwards, and you kind of collapse into yourself. So I usually like to ask if there's a specific time or a certain area that's coming to mind around when that would have started.
I mean, I don't know when it started. I don't know when it all started. I remember being like paranoid as a child, like trusting people. I remember being about 8 or less than 8 and being paranoid at like a bed and breakfast that they were going to poison our breakfast. So already very paranoid. So I imagine I must have picked that up from my mum or, you know, someone, because I wouldn't know where before that started.
To have that fear already.
And then in terms of the insecurities of not being enough, I definitely felt like I had to fight for attention, or, you know, guys that I would like would pick someone else or pick a friend, or I'd start off with a chance and then they'd go off me. There was a guy when I was really, really young, you know, when not even, like, must have been like 9 or 10 on like a French trip or something. And like he fancied all the girls in the bus and wrote them all a letter, apart from me. And so it's little things like that. And I think that must have stuck with me. Although I was very confident on the outside and very sporty and still had attention and attraction, I feel like there was so many times that I probably wasn't picked, or or was the least favourite child to other people.
Can I just pipe in on that too?
Pipe away.
I think what's so interesting for everyone listening too is we all have at least, I mean, multiple moments, but we all have that moment from like early schooling where we're still holding on to that. No matter how old you are, you still have that memory of that time where, that boy that you liked or that friend or that person in your class just made a comment or did something rude.
And it sticks with you for life.
You're still holding it.
The fact that I can remember it still.
And then the problem with that, and what a lot of us don't realize, is that the mind reaffirms, like what we focus on grows. So when that's becoming a belief when you're younger, and you feel that, you see that happen once where he writes the letters to everyone else on the bus but you, and it's like a mini traumatic event for you, feeling really left out, not enough, unworthy, all of that stuff. And then because you're so hurt by it, you're carrying that and you start to identify with it. And then maybe next week at school someone makes a little comment that kind of digs at you or doesn't include you, and all of a sudden it reaffirms that exact memory. It's like it flashes back to,
like another,
oh my gosh, this is exactly what happened. I'm not enough. And you just continue to play that story, and it gets louder and louder over all the years.
So then how do we actually unblock that? So let's say there's been multiple times for all of us, because there's so many other examples I could give too, that once I was 13 in my spots, and someone really fancied me, and then they saw me in the light, and then suddenly saw my spots and was like, oh God, no. She would have been really hot if she didn't have that terrible, hideous skin.
Yeah.
That stuck with me in multiple layers as the years went by. So that seems like a lot of things. That's what I find overwhelming. So how do we kind of eradicate or release that? And is it shedding it and then replacing it with new beliefs, or what is it? What's the process?
Yeah, one of my favorite ways to sort of fix those is to look at the validity of it. And really now as an adult, or it doesn't really matter what age you are listening to this, but you have matured, you have grown, you have the ability to see things differently now than maybe as a child. As a child, we only know a limited amount, and we carry that so deeply.
And we don't know how to self-soothe.
We don't know how to... Yeah, exactly. So we take it all on as truth.
Yeah.
Whereas now you have the ability to reflect on some of those moments and go, okay, even if this thing happened and it did hurt my child self, I'm not trying to dismiss it or ignore it or say it didn't hurt, because it did, and it carried some pain and some emotions. But is it actually true, and what was actually the real story that happened there? Because your perception took on the thing that you weren't enough and you're the only one, and really ran with that. And even if that was 110% the case, it's sort of like, what is the real truth of that? Does that actually mean that you were absolutely worthless? Or does that mean that maybe that guy was just a little bit mean and like bullying you or picking on you? Or does it mean that, you know, what kind of other dynamics or possible stories could have happened there, other than the one that you remember?
So this is where I get stuck, and why I still haven't like mastered these issues, is because to me, if someone felt that, and this is probably where I need to do the work, and we can also maybe dive into this as well on another episode, if not now, because to me the fact that someone felt that, or that was true, it means there is truth to it. And so for me to then ignore that feels like I'm trying to just deny the fact that there is truth to that. So for instance, speaking of like a more adult relationship in latter years, feeling rejected or feeling left for another woman, I don't know any other way other than, well, it must mean I'm not enough. Because if a man loves me and they've seen me in all of my glory and then all of my, you know, shit,
not as glory,
not so much glory,
not so much,
then what? Then I don't know how to make that mean anything else other than, well, if I was really that enough or really that great, he would want me. Because there's obviously, I can't see it any other way, and that's where I'm blocked, and that's where I need the help. Is, to me, I know there are other ways. Well, maybe our energies don't align, maybe the other woman is more suited, maybe I'm not his flavour but I'm someone else's flavour, but still the perfectionist in me is like finding it really hard to accept that, because I'm like, well, it must mean this, because honestly, if I was that great, he wouldn't leave. That's how I see it.
And I think that's where the whole beginning, the control, the insecurity, the self-worth, all these things do come back around full circle.
Like an absolute tornado.
Yeah. Because yes, you could look at it that way, but then at the same time, that's also basing everything around you in someone else, and that brings out the people pleasing, right? Which is a whole other episode for sure. We're
gonna get stuck into that as well, because I'm gonna tick all these boxes, by the way. So for anyone at home, there's just so many endless abundance of topics. It's even if this one doesn't maybe resonate with you as much, there's so many different topics that will.
We're gonna dive into. But I think with the people pleasing as well, that's part of that situation where we're letting everyone else dictate the truth about ourselves instead of creating our own truth. So you are living from a space of, this boy wrote everyone else a note, so if he feels that way, someone else could feel that way, and there must be something wrong with me. And you're placing all of your worth and everything into every single other person's opinion of you. Whereas there could be one person who thinks what he thinks for every 9 people who are absolutely in love with you and think the absolute opposite. But you're so focused in on that 1 out of 10, that negative, and basing your whole identity and perception of yourself on that one person.
It's crazy.
And meanwhile, the other 9 could be there like, Charlie,
love me. And I'm like, nope, I've got to convince this one. Like, I've got to, this is the one. It's typical, isn't it? It's like, that's the one I want as well. It's usually, it's like, I need to master this. It's the perfectionist side. It's like instead of going where I'm wanted, I don't seem to have grasped onto that concept yet.
And then when someone comes in who does truly love you and want to treat you well and is the absolute perfect person in the world, you're still consumed by this person who doesn't feel that way or the way you think they think about you. That perception that you don't feel worthy of receiving the love from the person who truly cares and is perfect for you. Because you have yet to tap into your confidence or your strength or that inner knowing that you could be good enough for this person, because you've been so focused on who you think you're not good enough for.
Yes, that's so interesting, because to start with I was like, no, I think I would definitely receive that really well, but actually I'd probably somewhere along the line sabotage it without realising, because I feel like I can feel that kind of energy. I'm like, oh wow, that sounds amazing. That would be easy to receive, but realistically I would probably not receive it actually, because I don't know how.
And it's a really common response. I know for a lot of women I've coached, and for myself too, that was something that came up where I thought, oh, I'm ready to receive that, and I would able to own it and take do that.
It. Yeah, especially after that. But actually, because of the patterns, right?
Yeah, so the patterns and still some of those insecurities or deeply rooted things could come up and
then reject them or not believe them or be suspicious of them because it's too good to be true.
And you start to kind of push them away to create safety for yourself because you don't want to be hurt by this person who you now are starting, maybe your mind, it just tells these stories, right? And it starts to go down the rabbit hole of maybe he doesn't actually think that much about me, or maybe I'm not good enough, or all these old examples that prove otherwise.
Or maybe when he really gets to know me and sees like me at my worst and my insecurities, then he'll go off me. And I always have this, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's part of the story that then creates that need for safety within ourselves, where we start to put our walls up again, because we're kind of like, this person could be perfect, but now old stories or fears come up, and so we try to protect ourselves from getting really deeply hurt, but then we're not actually able to fully receive, and then it keeps us operating on the vibration of the lower people who match how we're currently feeling with insecurities and fears and doubts. And then that's who we call in more of, and then it reaffirms why we don't deserve the better ones,
right? Because they keep keep playing out the same way, and then they keep rejecting us, and then that's so true. Okay, so with that being said, with this information, with sharing like these are the examples and where I'm at, and where a lot of us I'm sure are at, what can I do with that information? So where's a place to start? How can I take that and run with it?
So what I would start to do, as we've kind of talked about how the mind can tell its stories and it reaffirms, and the more we go down a certain path, the stronger that belief becomes. So it's almost like you think of it as a movie in your mind, and right now you have it's this one track, this movie playing and it's driving me nuts. And so in order to sort of reprogram that and shift the subconscious beliefs a different way, it is going to take a lot of repetition around telling the opposite or implanting in new memories or new beliefs.
So example being?
Yeah. So an example would be taking that instance of the bus where the boy wrote notes to everyone else but you.
Thomas.
Screw you, Thomas.
Yeah, exactly.
But if no, because he's teaching a lesson. So
exactly. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you. But taking that memory and looking at it from a totally different lens, that's going to allow you to feel a little bit more empowered. So for that, it's going to feel silly at first, and it isn't going to feel realistic or truthful,
it's so foreign to
because
me.
it is so foreign, and you've spent so long seeing it one way. But maybe there's a way of spinning it of like, you know what, boys at that age picked on the girls that they liked, so maybe he actually secretly really liked you and was trying to get your attention in a...
Treat them mean, keep them keen.
Yeah. In like an elementary school way.
Yeah.
And he didn't know how to express or anything, so he was like picking on you and trying to leave you out in hopes that it would get some kind of rise out of you or some kind of attention.
Right.
And that's like a total twist on the whole
It is.
thing.
And that's the thing, I can do that, but my brain's like, you're lying to yourself, you're just trying to make yourself feel better. And that's the kind of wall that I found myself hit with some of these things, is I feel like I hate the thought of lying to myself.
Yeah.
I'm big on self-honesty and awareness, although I definitely have lots of blind spots, but I'm scared to lie to myself, you know? So then I'd be like, well, I want to believe that, but that's not the truth.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that plays into kind of the next step of that, which is that, you know, we do have a choice of where we focus our attention, and we know, and science has proven, like everything is proven, that negative thoughts breed more negativity,
and
more mental,
negatives.
physical, emotional, spiritual problems.
Yeah.
And positive thoughts have the power to do the opposite.
So you basically have a choice, and that's the thing. None of it really is the one truth, is it? It's the truth that you decide to pick.
Yeah.
Because there's multiple possibilities and realities anyway. So,
and that's why they always say your perception creates your reality, because we really have so much power in how we perceive things and what we want to focus on. And it does feel sometimes like you're lying to yourself a bit when you create this positive shift, because there is that part of you that's like, I
don't buy into that. That doesn't really feel very realistic.
It's like, for me, I think of even when I had horrible self-talk and insecurities and self-image problems too, the first few times I would look in the mirror and say, oh, you're so beautiful, my mind was like, no, you're not. Like, stop lying to yourself. All of those
You're
stories.
just trying to convince yourself,
like,
just to feel better.
Yeah, like, this isn't even true. It can bully you and fight back.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like just being consistent with it of, hey, does it even matter if this is true or not? If this makes me feel a little bit better in the moment, to tell myself a compliment or to tell myself that he secretly liked me the whole time, and allow that new perception to start to create that new reality and take you down that different track
until eventually it
feels real, and you start to see yourself differently, you feel more confident showing up around people and in relationships, and you're able to actually then perceive more of the good things than only the negative.
And then once you perceive more of that over and over, you'll start experiencing
and attracting more. So it really is, it's such a mind game of shifting that.
It all stems back down to the thoughts that we choose, right? So on that subject, seeing as this now seems to be like insecurities in relationships with men, and you know, and there are others, but this is kind of focused on that. This is another belief, for instance, and I don't know if any of you guys at home have had this. I don't know, Cara, if you've had it, but I have a major insecurity around when my partner, whoever that person is at the time, gets close to my friends, because I have such beautiful friends and they're very like me as people. So there are similarities of what my partner would like in me, he'd like in them. But then obviously in my brain, because of my insecurities, and I don't put myself on a pedestal, I put everyone else on one. I'm like, well, he's definitely going to prefer her. He's going to develop feelings for her if we all start hanging out together, because she's stunning. She's got the traits that I have that he loves, and some more amazing ones. And so I can't see any other way than that they're going to fall in love with my friend. It's like I cannot... It always happen, like it always scares me. It's actually happened to me a few times. And it sucks, because I'm at the stage in my life where I want to live in freedom and surrender and have all my mates together with whoever my next man is. But yet I'm in the back of the little insecure inner child at the back of my mind that's having a good beach day with everyone is thinking, oh God, don't get too close, like don't spend too much time together because you'll leave me and you'll probably choose her. And I don't know how to see it any other way, because I don't have that full-on self-esteem and value yet. I can't, it's impossible not to happen in my brain, so it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that?
Yeah, I feel like...
It's a big one.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's two things that come to mind for me, and that's obviously the doing the extra confidence work and like really working on that self-esteem to build yourself up and to boost your view of yourself and your value, so that you start to realize that you do have so many amazing qualities you're bringing to the table. And the second one, though, is also that whole connection to the universe or whatever higher power we believe in terms of, do you believe that things happen for a reason and that you're destined to find your absolute perfect match, your perfect soulmate, that you deserve that, and that man is going to come in at the right time? Because then I think the combination of those two can really help us to see that there may be partners who end up leaving or choosing someone else, but was that actually the right person for you? Obviously not, if it didn't work out, is kind of the way I see it. Yeah. It's hard when you're in it, and I know I've been triggered by that before too.
I do, and it's funny because I do actually believe that, or I like to believe that, but there is a piece of me that's like, well, if I hadn't introduced them, then this wouldn't have happened, and I may have been with that person forever. But I feel like I've intervened with maybe what was supposed to happen, because I've been like, right, come together, let's hang out. And a piece of me thinks that I'm obviously in charge, or has influenced that. So I feel responsible. So then I regret my own decisions, because if I really trusted and I was like, you know what, whatever happens in my life is meant to happen that way, which is what I'm hoping through this journey. And I'm hoping all of you guys at home that don't have as much faith as some of us, like I don't have as much faith as you do, for instance. So if we can all, actually have that mentality more, where it's like, whatever happens, it's right. It's meant that way. But I haven't nailed that belief yet. I'm still a bit like, maybe it wouldn't have happened if I didn't arrange that beach picnic and introduce them, and then I wouldn't have been abandoned, and they wouldn't have gone off into the sunset and left me. So
do you feel like that is the ego, though?
She's a crazy woman in front of me. This is going to be a long one.
Yeah, we're going to go for a while now. But I feel like, and I want to preface this for everyone listening, I think we all have really negative views of ego, and when we hear that word, I know it used to really put my back up, that I was like being accused or pointed at like some bad person, but everyone has an ego, and I think, to me, that's the ego coming in and thinking that you have more control over everyone's life and the way things play out than God source universe does, right? Because
you're a gigantic ego in that sense. I wish I'm trying to get rid of it.
It's almost like you're playing God. And actually we were talking about this the other day, of taking responsibility. You have a pattern of taking all the responsibility, which can be good or bad,
and
but
all the blame.
Too much. In that you are seeing it as, well, I introduced them and I brought them together at the picnic and I did this, and if I hadn't, maybe we'd still be together. I wouldn't have lost them. Versus God, source, universe, whatever higher power we want to call it, might have actually orchestrated that because maybe those two people were meant to meet at that time. Maybe they were meant to meet that way because you needed to learn something. And this
the
higher
I
power,
can't possibly understand.
that you can't understand or maybe find all your answers to. But that higher power was coming through you. And I think for all areas of our life, the more we can get into that state of really deeply feeling connected to that higher power and realizing that we aren't in control. It's just something channeling and flowing through us, and it is going to bring us the perfect person or the opportunity we need or the lesson we need right now today. And so there's no need for you to take that responsibility or take that blame or to even think that it dictates your worth or your value, because in actuality maybe that's exactly what was supposed to happen to set you on the next step.
Yeah, and I love that way of thinking, and I really believe that I can get there, especially with like some training and just like affirmations and continuing to choose that's the way I want to see things. I think when you were talking, the part that's still a little bit question mark for me is the times I feel like I'm being a bit more forceful. So if I'm just going about my day and it happens, then I'm more like, well, you know what, that just happened. It was meant to be that way. But because I have a nature and history of being quite like persistent or forceful, or when I really want something, I make it happen. I've gotten used to that way of being. And although I'm, trying to calm that down at the moment, I feel like that's the times I doubt it. I feel like what you're saying is true. But for me, I feel like, but not in my case, because I'm quite forceful. And so I think in the times I'm forcing it, maybe that's where I intervened and messed up the flow of what was supposed to happen and caused something.
Or maybe you were created to be a forceful person so that you could help
I've always
facilitate.
got an answer, and I love it. I love it because it's true.
Yeah, I'm just like
Devil's
taking
advocate.
it all in and throwing it back. But maybe that is part of your path. Maybe that is part of your journey on this planet in this lifetime, is that you were meant to be one of those people who makes things happen, whether for yourself or for others. And you're here as that person who is taking the action, going for it, facilitating, bringing people together, creating opportunities. And instead of it...
For everyone and myself. Instead of it being a bad thing, because it doesn't always work out in your favor. It's like you're still part of the bigger plan that's facilitating and creating these for someone else. Oh, love that way of thinking it. It's going to be good. Okay, so to wrap that up, because otherwise we could go on forever. I would actually like to do the next episode, instead of making this one big giant long one, the thing you said a minute ago, which is the confident self-esteem. I would love to dive into that on the next episode, because or just another episode, because with that I had all these questions of, okay, I agree, where do we, all of us that struggle with confidence, men, women, where do we start with that? So yes, we know that we've got to have more self-esteem and more confidence in order to feel more valued in ourselves and not give our power away, but that's easy to say, but how do we actually start that journey? And I feel like that would be a really beautiful episode to dive into, and you coach us through that.
I would love that.
Yay. And I know you guys are all shouting right now going, you definitely love it too. So I'd love to dive in with that. So to wrap this episode up, is there anything else you want to like sort of finalize with me or ask me under this umbrella of insecurities, or say to our audience?
I think just to summarize, because we were touching base on a lot of different points and different examples. Just one of the things that we didn't mention but is such a common theme with that is the awareness of your self-talk and your thoughts and what is triggering you, or what are your patterns. So if, like Charlie, you have these memories from childhood where you feel like you weren't picked or you weren't chosen, you weren't enough, looking at those and then trying to apply some of these things from this episode where you're shifting it. Is there a silver lining? Is there a different way you can look at this exact story and flip it to work in your favor and in your power, so that then you can start to create a more positive movement for yourself going forward. And then as we do dive into self-esteem and more of the confidence on the next episode, we can really kind of keep building up. So this can be part of the uncovering, almost the uncovering and shifting. And then the next step is to start building up from that foundation and creating new beliefs, new habits.
I love it. Yeah, because I feel like we're literally going on a journey together, and that's what I love about the consistency. And instead of sporadic topics, really sort of like leading into the next episode, so we're continuing to build together. And create more awareness and more tools, and actually go through the process together in between the weeks.
Because everyone listening will have multiple stories and different beliefs that were created from it, and probably a lot of patterns as well.
And even if they're not, guys, maybe you don't have this same issue in relationships as I do, but you might have this in the workplace or in friendship groups or in other aspects of your life, so you can apply it to all of this work that we're doing can be, you know, taken in for any aspect of your life.
Exactly. Customize it for yourself and where you're at. But then you can use those same tools and the reframing and
changing the beliefs, flipping it.
Creating that positive movie, that positive story instead, so that you start to build that momentum forward.
Amazing. Oh, thanks, Cara.
You're welcome.
Guys, I hope that you enjoyed listening to the Charlie and Cara show. Next week is going to be all about confidence and self-esteem, and thank you so much for listening. It's so magical to be doing this with you and just holding this space where Cara can be be and do what she does best, which is coach us through it and be the expert and facilitate and give the tools. And I am essentially, just your home girl who has got many struggles and issues that I'm really determined to overcome. And why not do that out loud instead of having private sessions where no one's listening in? We thought it would be a great idea to do it out loud, because if I'm getting this coaching, why can't you guys get it with me at the same time? So that there's extra healing in the world and we're all going through it together.
Exactly. And make sure you comment or share on Instagram as well if you found this helpful. If you have any questions, let us know, and we'd love to cover that and dive in on future podcasts as well, and just continue to support you all.
Amazing. I love you guys. Have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye guys.
Bye.